Long before children's books turned her into a cackling witch, an older and stranger figure haunted the imagination of the Slavic world. She was Baba Yaga, a name that rolled off tongues with both fear and familiarity. In remote hamlets surrounded by endless birch and pine, people spoke of her not as a single villain but as a presence, an embodiment of the forest itself. She lived, they said, in a house that moved like a living creature, a hut that creaked on legs and turned its door away from strangers until the right words were spoken. To the first tellers of these stories, Baba Yaga was not simply a monster. She was a boundary, a living symbol of everything that began where the fields ended and the dark woods began. In a world where winters were long and hunger was close, the forest was both larder and labyrinth. It gave timber, herbs, and game, but it also hid wolves, bandits, and spirits. Anyone who stepped off the beaten track risked meeting the unknown. Baba Yaga condensed that unknown into a single character, a grandmother who could help or harm, a keeper of tests whose gifts were as powerful as her punishments. Her name carries this double edge. Baba means old woman, but also grandmother, midwife, guardian of secrets. Yaga echoes words for disease, horror, snake, and even burning light. Inside the name sits a paradox. Age and fire, healer and devourer. The flying mortar and pestle she rides through the sky are not a joke. They are a symbol of transformation. A mortar grinds seeds into flour and herbs into medicine. By sitting inside it, Baba Yaga becomes the very process of change. She is the one who crushes the old so that the new may emerge. Even her famous hut has deeper roots. Archaeologists have found small wooden structures raised on posts across the northern forests. Some stored grain or sacred objects. Others held the bodies of the dead before burial. Posts carved like animal legs or claws are still found in folk art. Circling such a house before entering, as heroes do in the tales, was once a sign of respect for the spirits within. What fairy tales call chicken legs may be the folk memory of these posts, exaggerated over centuries until a hut could stride through the woods. To picture the world that birthed this legend, imagine standing at the edge of a river valley at dusk. Frost glitters on reeds. Smoke from unseen fires drifts through birch trunks. Somewhere, a raven calls. Villages are small, wooden, and temporary. Beyond their fences lies an unbroken ocean of trees. In this landscape, every crossing into the forest is an act of courage. And in every such crossing, the figure of Baba Yaga waits, a story's way of making the wilderness visible. When children huddled by the hearth listening to grandmothers, these images were more than entertainment. They were lessons disguised as adventure. The hut that turns its door away, the tasks that seem impossible, the old woman who can kill or reward, all taught that entering the unknown requires ritual, humility, and quick wits. In a time before maps and compasses, stories were maps of behavior. Baba Yaga's myth warned the careless and prepared the brave. This is where our retelling begins, not with a caricatured witch but with a complex pre-Christian guardian of thresholds, older than written Slavic, older perhaps than the villages themselves. She is the memory of raised shrines and winter initiations, of a world where every forest path could be the start of a transformation. Before chronicles and church bells, the people of the forested plains lived by cycles of light and cold. They left offerings at springs, tied ribbons to sacred trees, and carried bread to the edge of marshes for unseen powers. In these practices, the outline of Baba Yaga can be felt. She is the elder of the grove, the one who stands between the clan and the wild, the living and the ancestral. Archaeology confirms fragments of this world. Small raised houses on posts appear from Finland to the Volga, their legs sometimes carved like birds' claws. Ethnographers note rites of circling, singing, or knocking before entering. The hut was both storehouse and shrine, a point of contact with the dead. Oral stories compressed all this into a single image, a living house that must be turned by ritual words. The old midwives and healers, often called simply Babas, preserved herbs, birth rituals, and stories. They were the first teachers of children, whispering warnings and wisdom by firelight. Through them, the legend of Baba Yaga spread. As patriarchal and Christian norms hardened, the respected elder became the dangerous witch. Yet in scattered songs and dialects, traces of her older aspect survive. A guide, a keeper of fire, a mistress of time. In some areas she had 3 forms: dawn, noon, and night, echoing the triple goddesses of other Indo-European myths. In others she was bird-like, riding winds instead of mortars. These variations show not contradiction but vitality. A figure that embodies a landscape can shift shape and still remain itself. One of the most vivid legends tells of a girl exiled into the forest to fetch fire. She carries only a tiny doll, a blessing from her dead mother. Deep among the trees she finds the hut of Baba Yaga, creaking on its strange legs. The old woman sets her impossible tasks: separate grains from dirt, weave cloth from nettles, fetch water guarded by serpents. The doll helps in secret, and the girl succeeds. Instead of death she receives a burning skull, a living ember to light her way home. In some tellings this fire destroys her oppressors. In others it simply restores the hearth. Either way, she returns changed, no longer a victim but a bearer of power. Other stories send princes, soldiers, or hunters to Baba Yaga in search of living water, magical horses, or feathers of a radiant bird. Sometimes she blocks their way, sometimes she gives them the very tool they need. Her reaction mirrors theirs. Greed and disrespect bring ruin. Humility and courage open doors. Behind these plots is a ritual logic. Leaving the village is symbolic death. Entering the hut is descent into another world. Completing tasks is ordeal. Returning with a gift is rebirth. Baba Yaga is the teacher disguised as terror, the midwife of transformation. Everything in Baba Yaga's world speaks. Her 3 riders, white, red, black, mark dawn, noon, and night. Numbers 3 and 9 show stages of a journey. Her animals, cats, ravens, wolves, mice, are moral tests. Treat them kindly and they guide you. Harm them and you lose your way. Objects carry hidden meaning. The mortar and pestle are not kitchenware but instruments of change. The glowing skull is ancestral fire. Combs and towels dropped behind a fleeing hero become forests or rivers, echoing real folk magic for creating barriers. Even smells, iron of blacksmithing, pine resin, damp earth, anchor the myth in daily life. For ancient listeners this code was as clear as road signs. For modern audiences it feels like a dream of archetypes. Decoding it reveals a survival map disguised as a fairy tale. How to cross boundaries, face the unknown, and come back wiser. Step into a spring festival in a rural village and you may still see an effigy of an old woman carried to the edge of town and burned, a ritual farewell to winter. Hear a playground rhyme about a witch in the woods and you are hearing a fossil of the old legend. Baba Yaga has outlived the world that created her because she embodies a pattern every age needs. The frightening guide at the threshold. Writers, artists, and game designers borrow her hut, her skulls, her impossible tasks. In comics, she becomes a cosmic librarian. In games, she is a quest giver or a boss who might turn into an ally. Feminist authors reclaim her as a symbol of age and autonomy rather than monstrosity. Ecological thinkers see in her a warning that the wild is dangerous but necessary. Scholars explain her as a liminal persona, a shadow mentor, a remnant of triple goddesses, a memory of raised shrines. But you don't need footnotes to feel her relevance. Each time you face a daunting project, leave a safe job, or confront a fear, you enact her story. Leaving the known, meeting a test, returning with a spark. That is why the image endures. Behind the hut's spinning door stands not just a witch but a lesson. Fear can be a teacher. Thresholds are meant to be crossed, and the gifts we bring back from the dark can light more than our own path. Baba Yaga is still there, a goddess in exile, waiting at the edge of our imagination for anyone brave enough to enter.